The Prodigal Son returns. So Army of the Dead tells the story of a group of mercenaries breaking into a quarantined Las Vegas that is filled to the brim with the undead to pull off a daring heist. What is up, guys? Well, Army of the Dead is going to be coming on Netflix here in a week or so, but it is in limited theaters, and I got the chance this past weekend to check it out with my father. So I went to go see Jigsaw, didn't even realize, Spiral. Those movies get confusing, don't they? Went to go see Spiral, didn't even know that Army of the Dead was out. I got home, saw people dropping their reviews and went, son of a bitch, now I gotta go again. Army of the Dead is Zack Snyder's return to the subgenre that put him on the map. Zack Snyder directed the Dawn of the Dead remake, which, for context, is my favorite zombie film of all time, and is one of my favorite movies, period. I absolutely love what he did with that flick. And I am a big Zack Snyder fan. That's also some context you need to know, because I know he's a bit of a controversial figure. With the exception of Sucker Punch and Owls of the Ga'Hoole, I like pretty much every movie that he has done. Some of them I absolutely love. So, big hype, big anticipation walking into this movie, not only for Zack Snyder, but because the concept just sounded awesome. So does Zack Snyder's first film after stepping away from his long gestating drama with the DC Universe deliver, or is this another movie that's going to be loved by some and hated by others? Starting right off with the positives for Army of the Dead, the big one's just the concept. I love the whole setup of this. In true of the Dead fashion, this is a completely isolated movie that's separate from every other movie that has the tail end of the Dead, just like the classic Romero films. And this is one of the coolest concepts that I've seen for one of those isolated pictures. You got these group of mercenaries, you have Las Vegas that has been walled off with cargo containers where the undead has just been festering in there after a really cool opening scene where the patient zero, if you will, gets broken out. And they have to go in here for this job that they are paid to do, where they need to steal millions of dollars, and they get a big ass chunk of it if they're able to pull it off. It's just an awesome concept. I never even watched the trailer to this movie. All I heard was Zack Snyder, zombies, heist film, and I went, fuck yes, sign me up. I want 5 of them right now. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me about this movie was that it really felt like Zack Snyder took a lot of inspiration from zombie video games. There's a little bit of Resident Evil flavor in here with this impending nuclear strike in this walled off city that you could call Raccoon City if it wasn't so Las Vegas decorated and so neon filled. You have even elements of more recent games like Dying Light where there's different levels of zombies. You've got your regular stupid slow zombies. You got ones that are a little bit more ferocious like 28 Weeks Later, 28 Days Later, and Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. And then you have these alpha zombies that are actually sentient, that are actually like intelligent, and they have like these hierarchy systems, and they can feel and they can love and they can command all of them.
What the?
It's a very cool, interesting, unique way to bring the zombie subgenre back to the movie theaters. And the whole time that I was watching it, I was like, dude, if you didn't know any better, if I told somebody that doesn't play video games that this is a video game adaptation, you would never doubt that for a second. It's totally like a zombie video game in live action, and that is pretty awesome. And of course, with a zombie flick, we gotta talk about that sweet carnage candy, bitch! Oh my god, there's some good gore in this movie. One scene in particular with the zombie tiger attack, that was... For us hardcore horror fans, one of the biggest criteria for an awesome zombie flick is how good is the gore. How real and intense and visceral does it look when these motherfuckers are just chewing on human flesh? And this movie does deliver. It is very over the top with the gore. I mean, there's scenes where these mercenaries are just pumping bullets into zombies, and you just see heads exploding left and right. There's blood and brains shooting everywhere. I talked about a tiger attack that was just painfully awesome. And even like other types of gore where there's beheadings and there's just, it's fucking good. The gore, the carnage candy delivers in this movie. So if you were worried at all about, is this going to earn that R rating? Oh, it earns it. And while this does coincide a little bit with my positive regarding the video game feel to it, there is a lot of really interesting rules and very unique takes on the zombie subgenre that I enjoyed here regarding how they're able to communicate with the zombies, how they're able to kind of work out a deal and get a rite of passage from the alpha zombies, and even to the way that how the virus spreads and how it all starts. I thought that it was all pretty unique. For me personally, the zombie subgenre might be the most burnt out, bled dry, no pun intended, subgenre in horror right now. When you got shows like The Walking Dead that have just ran on way too long and just turned the zombie subgenre to something that everybody has been trying to do for the past 10 years, I'm kind of tired of it all. And when you get a movie like this that can actually do something new and unique and make it feel fresh again, man, does that feel welcome. Moving on to the mixed aspects, the main one for me is the cast here. I think that there's kind of a mixed bag going on. I mean, when you have a movie like this where a group of mercenaries, this little ragtag group of badasses, you always expect them to have very fun, larger-than-life personalities, and some of them do, but some of them don't. And I feel like that was a bit where the movie really could have earned almost an extra star, in my opinion. If you would have had a little bit more bombastic personalities, a little bit more memorable characters here. There's one or two of them that do stand out and you do enjoy, but there's a lot of them that just kind of feel like they're there. There's one that I'm going to talk about in a little bit that was just flat out annoying. Cast and characters, mixed bag. And kind of going along with that is Dave Bautista as the lead here. I like Dave Bautista. I think that he's a very talented guy, and I think that he has made incredible choices with his career, and he does get better every single time that I see him. So keeping that in mind, I still think that he lacks a little bit in the personality side. I think that when you have a guy like that that's such a larger-than-life physical presence, much like The Rock, I mean, just that wrestler thing just kind of automatically has this physical presence, he kind of lacks a little bit in the charisma side of things. Not that this character is meant to be charismatic, he's meant to be a little bit stoic, but I feel like when you're the leader of this group, you should be the most memorable character of all of them, and I didn't really feel like he delivered that. Enjoyed it. Physically, he brings it. Just could have used a bit more personality out of him. Now moving on to the negatives, this movie's way too long. And you know, I kind of expected it because this is the first movie after all of the DC drama to where 2 films in a row, the studio just ripped them away from Zack Snyder and cut his movie all to hell and destroyed both of them. I totally expected the next movie that he was going to make, especially when Netflix is the one that's funding the whole thing and handling the distribution, that he was going to mandate Final Cut. Well, he should have had a few more cuts because the movie is pushing 2.5 hours long. There is at least 15 minutes that you could cut back from this, especially in the first act. The first act, the length of this movie really hurts its pacing. When you're starting to build up this concept, I mean, you have a really awesome opening. Whenever the opening is done, you have the world established, your concept is there, and now you're starting to get reintroduced to these characters and get little tidbits of who all of them are, and, you know, the gathering of the team. That whole side of this movie really feels like it drags, to the point where when you finally get into Las Vegas, you're like, thank Christ, because I was getting impatient there, Zack. And even down to the way that the movie ends, it's kind of becoming a Zack Snyder's signature at this point, to where the movie feels like it ends multiple times. And I'm not getting specific, no spoilers here, but the movie comes to a very natural conclusion, and then it has kind of this extra post-credit scene that's not a post-credit scene that goes on for like another 7 or 8 minutes. That just, I don't know, it drags out the pacing a little bit more. It doesn't really feel like it adds anything to the ending, in my opinion. I feel like the natural ending, the better ending, came about 8 minutes prior. And my other 2 negatives deal with specific characters. There is a lock picker or a safe cracker, whatever you want to call him in here, that is a part of the team that has this shtick to him to where he screams like a little girl every time a zombie comes out. That was funny once. They do it about 9 times. The whole thing about that recurring joke that they just keep going back to, they really fell on their face with that guy. And it's to the point where I was annoyed all to hell with his character. Every single time he was around, I was like, dude, you're just here to whine and to ask ridiculous questions. Why are you even here? Like, you're serving no purpose to this team other than cracking that safe. You should have died in the first act, because every single time this guy comes around, he's just, every time a zombie comes. And then it gets to the point where he's taking him out like John Wick, which, that's another thing I'm going to talk about here in a second. But the biggest detriment to my enjoyment of this film was Bautista's character's daughter. He has this estranged daughter that is a nurse that's kind of helping out in these little volunteer segments of these camps outside of Las Vegas, and he needs her help to get into Las Vegas, and then part of her deal is that she knows that one of her friends is in there and she's gonna have to go. No military training whatsoever, no badass weapons, just a little pistol, and she forces him to take her with him, otherwise she's gonna blow the whole thing wide open. I cannot stand that cliche, and it is a cliche, because a lot of movies where you have this estranged father-daughter, where the father's a badass, the daughter just has this incessant need to just force her way into the situation with no business being there, and almost without exception, in every single movie that uses that cliche, that daughter's presence fucks things up. You know, it would destroyed Jack Reacher 2 for me. And if it had gone just a little bit farther, it could have destroyed this film, because there's certain points in the second and third act where this character just absolutely pissed me off with what she was doing. It made you have zero sympathy for her. You have this whole cornerstone of like this emotional side of the story where you're trying to root for Dave Bautista to win at the end so that he can kind of get that relationship back with his daughter. But she's such an aggravating character that that whole side of the storyline, that whole thematic element of closure and of healing just is destroyed because this character just pisses you off so much. And even getting into the third act, there's things that she does that just, without getting, it's very hard to describe without spoilers, but the means do not justify the ends with this character. There's things that she wants to do, there's things that she's taking the moral high ground, she's technically right with what she wants to do, but the way that she goes about it is so stupid and selfish that every single one of the consequences that comes from her actions just infuriates you by the ending reel of this film. And there's small little tweaks and changes that they could have done to her character very easily to make that a little bit more of a palatable storyline for her. They could have made it to where he trained her and, you know, she was like daddy's girl and this tomboy, and she's got like fucking perfect aim because she's an absolute nobody with no training, and then by the third act of this movie, every fucking shot she takes is a headshot, and that pulls you out of the movie. But even if she was just a total badass and she just had that hard edge, like I'm a fucking rebel, and she goes off, if she just had that established personality that was a little bit more cool, that could have been more palatable. But she just comes across as this selfish bitch the entire movie. And by the last reel, I was like, okay, this character brought this whole movie down like an entire point for me. Like, that's just a cliche that you need to avoid, and that's a cliche that people need to stop doing because nobody pulls it off well. You ruin everything that that character is tied to when you do this. But overall, guys, despite my gripes, this is a very fun movie to go check out in the theaters. If you're somebody that has been avoiding the movie theaters and you're just now getting the confidence to go set foot back into one of these things, this is an awesome movie to go and check out because it just has everything that you go to the movies for. Gigantic explosions, tons of gunplay, blood and guts and brains spraying all over the screen. This is a movie to check out and to just go and have fun with. It showcases a lot of Zack Snyder's strengths as a filmmaker, but unfortunately also showcases some of his weaknesses as a filmmaker, and one or two characters really held this film back for me. But overall, definitely recommend that if you are a zombie fan to check this thing out in the theater. So if you're a zombie fan and you want to see what Zack Snyder can do all these years later when he goes back to the zombie subgenre, definitely check out Army of the Dead. If you're ready to go back to the theaters, that is a must-see in the theater. But for everybody else, no shame whatsoever in checking this thing out at home and streaming it. So what do you guys think of Army of the Dead? Did this deliver everything that you wanted from a movie from Zack Snyder going back to the zombie subgenre, or do you feel like it stumbled a little bit like I did? What were your favorite parts? Who were your favorite characters? And do you want to see more of these? Because apparently there's a prequel in the works, there's an animated film, or he's got other things coming. So are you ready for that? Let me know down below what your thoughts are. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button so you can check out all of my future reviews and rankings. We're going to be doing quite a few Resident Evil rankings over the next week, so definitely subscribe to check out that shit. And as always, guys, thank you for watching, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.